Hi, I'm Maya, 29 years old, and for years, my own sister made me feel invisible, until I found a way to change everything. The annual Patel family reunion was always a minefield, but this year, the explosions would be different. Vanessa didn't know that while she bragged about her success, I had been quietly building the life she assumed I could never have. Before I dive in, hit like if you've ever felt underestimated by someone close to you, and subscribe, because today you're going to see how patience, planning, and strategy can turn the tables completely. The familiar driveway of my parents' suburban home stretched out like a runway for the wealthy. Luxury cars lined either side, polished to a gleam that reflected the late afternoon sun. Vanessa's pearl-white Tesla dominated the prime spot closest to the front door. Of course. I adjusted the strap of my simple blue sundress, feeling the fabric cling slightly from the lingering summer heat. My chest tightened. Anxiety had become my shadow around family events, a low hum beneath the laughter, the clinking glasses, the fake smiles. Today, that anxiety was mingled with dread. Vanessa had already begun her performance, and everyone else knew their roles in her play. I was just supposed to watch. Maya. You made it. Mom rushed forward as I stepped out of my car, her silk dress swishing elegantly. Her smile was warm, but her eyes betrayed a small, persistent worry, one I knew well. Vanessa's been asking where you were, Mom said gently, her tone almost pleading. I bet she has, I thought, smoothing down my dress as if the motion could straighten the knot in my stomach. Traffic was terrible, Mom. Sorry I'm late. Vanessa's voice sliced across the room, smooth and cold. When isn't she late? She was already moving toward me, champagne flute in hand, her designer outfit immaculate. Every gesture was calculated to radiate success, confidence, dominance. I drove, actually, I said, forcing a small, polite smile. The hospital parking is expensive, but the nurse's lot has some perks, I added, trying to sound casual. Vanessa waved dismissively. Oh, right. Still doing that nursing thing? The smirk on her face was deliberate, as if she was reminding me of the hierarchy she had imposed in our family dynamic since childhood. I felt a flicker of heat rise in my chest. I wasn't the struggling, invisible sibling anymore, at least, not for long. Ethan, her husband, chimed in smoothly. Vanessa and I just closed on our 4th investment property this year. Maya, you should really think about your future. Before I could even respond, Dad appeared. His presence was meant to stabilize the chaos of the family gathering. Vanessa, sweetheart, tell everyone about that new development deal, he said, his voice proud but weary, accustomed to her performances. I watched as Vanessa's posture shifted subtly. Commanding the room, she had perfected it over decades. Her gaze swept the family, capturing attention with practiced ease. Leo, my cousin, caught my eye from across the room and offered a sympathetic smile, a quiet acknowledgement that he, too, saw the unfairness, the daily undermining I endured. Everyone, Vanessa announced, clinking her glass, I have an announcement. The room hushed, turning toward her. I grabbed a glass of wine from a passing tray, my hand trembling slightly as I anticipated the verbal assault. Ethan and I are looking at the most amazing vacation property in the Hamptons, she gushed, the words spilling like champagne over the rim of her glass. It's absolutely perfect, private beach access, 6 bedrooms, infinity pool. She paused for effect. Of course, not everyone can afford such investments. Maya, didn't you mention you were having money troubles? A deafening silence fell. My heart raced. Wine glass frozen halfway to my lips, I realized I had been set up for humiliation, for everyone to see me as the struggling, inferior sister. I whispered quietly. Oh, come on, Vanessa pressed, her smile sharp and thin as a knife. I saw those collection notices in your mailbox when I dropped by last month. No shame in admitting you're struggling. We can't all be successful. Heat crept up my neck, my ears tingled. Relatives shifted uncomfortably. Mom's face fell, and Dad's eyes avoided mine. The humiliation felt like tiny knives pricking under my skin. I'm doing fine, Vanessa, I said, my voice steady but soft, the words tasting metallic in my mouth. Fine, sweetie. You live in a tiny apartment and take the bus. It's okay to admit you need help. That's what family's for, she said, voice dripping with condescension, carefully layered with fake concern. Ethan laughed nervously. Maybe we should. No, really, Vanessa interrupted, cutting him off mid-word. Maya's always been the practical one. Some people just aren't meant for bigger things. Something inside me snapped, not a dramatic outburst, not an explosive gesture. It was quiet, a single, crisp click deep within me, like a lock turning. My pulse steadied as clarity hit. This was my turning point. The plan I had been nurturing silently, steadily, for years began to crystallize. I smiled, took a sip of wine, and said nothing. Maya? Mom ventured cautiously, concerned by my silence. Vanessa's right, I said finally, my voice calm but firm. Some people aren't meant for bigger things, they're meant for smarter things. Vanessa's smile faltered, the practiced poise slipping ever so slightly. Excuse me, I said, pulling my phone from my purse as it buzzed. A work emergency. I stepped onto the back porch, taking in the late afternoon air and letting my heartbeat slow just enough to savor the moment. Noah's message appeared, everything set. The papers are signed. I looked back through the window at my family, Vanessa holding court, Mom beaming at her perfect daughter, relatives silently taking sides. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my real estate agent. Congratulations, the Hamptons house is yours. I allowed myself a slow, satisfied smile. Vanessa had no idea. She had been flaunting her dream property for months, oblivious that I had been quietly, meticulously building the foundation to claim it for myself. I typed back, perfect. Don't let anyone know about the sale yet. I lingered on the porch, savoring the calm before the storm. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't served cold, it's served with perfect timing. 3 days had passed since the family reunion, but the sting of Vanessa's words still lingered, a dull ache at the base of my skull. Even as I walked the halls of the hospital, tending to trauma patients, assisting in surgeries, the memory of her smirk haunted me. Every dismissive glance, every whispered comment about my practical choices, played on a loop in my mind. I could feel it physically, the tension coiling tight in my chest, the shallow rhythm of my breath, the persistent urge to prove, just once, that I was more than the quiet, overlooked sister. Night after night, I lay in my tiny apartment, staring at the ceiling, calculating, planning. The city hummed outside my window, distant car horns, the rhythmic clatter of the bus I took to work, the faint drone of sirens that punctuated the early hours. In that stillness, I began to sketch my path forward. It wasn't just about Vanessa buying a house I couldn't afford, it was everything she had made me feel invisible for years. The way she would interrupt me at family dinners, the way she subtly belittled my career as a nurse, the way she flaunted her wealth and connections as if my efforts were irrelevant. I remembered Christmas dinner 4 years ago, when she loudly dismissed my choice to work in trauma nursing as a backup for those who couldn't make it in real medicine. I had forced a smile, nodded politely, and swallowed my resentment like bitter medicine. That night, I made a decision. If she thought I was fragile, unambitious, and naive, she was gravely mistaken. I began to pick up extra shifts at the hospital, strategically selecting nights that maximized overtime pay. Every single bonus, every paycheck, I funneled into a secret investment portfolio. While my colleagues splurged on clothes or dining, I consulted with financial advisors late into the night, learning every strategy, every market trend, every trick that could turn small savings into serious wealth. I lived frugally, foregoing weekends out, dinners with friends, even small luxuries. I smiled, laughed, and nodded along when Vanessa or relatives assumed I was struggling, because that ignorance was my armor. It was exhausting. Physically, emotionally, psychologically. There were nights when my body ached so badly I wondered if I could push through another 12-hour shift. Nights when I cried quietly in my shower, letting the water hide my tears. Nights when I stared at my bank account, willing it to grow faster, willing my plan to come together. I questioned myself constantly. Was it worth it? Was revenge worth the sleepless nights, the sacrifices, the isolation? The answer came one evening when I scrolled through Vanessa's Instagram. She had posted a series of pictures in front of the Hamptons property she coveted, the one I had quietly secured. She captioned it, "Dreams do come true. Can't wait to make this paradise ours. Blessed." My stomach churned with a mixture of anger and anticipation. She had no idea. She thought she was untouchable in her wealth, untouchable in her family's eyes. That's when the thrill of the plan gripped me, the intoxicating knowledge that in a few short days, I would be holding the power she had arrogantly assumed she possessed. I pictured the look on her face when she realized the house, the very symbol of her superiority, would not belong to her. Yet, executing the plan was not simple. Each step carried risk. What if my family discovered my investment? What if Vanessa learned before the perfect moment? My hands shook as I drafted emails, confirmed transactions, and coordinated with real estate agents under layers of secrecy. I had to remain perfect, perfectly invisible, perfectly underestimated. No one noticed the change in me during our coffee breaks. "You're actually insane," he laughed one afternoon, the aroma of fresh espresso filling the air of the hospital cafeteria. "Like, certifiably insane," I replied, and the edges of my own grin betrayed the thrill I felt. He leaned forward. "Tell me everything." I showed him the listing photos on my phone: 6 bedrooms, private beach access, an infinity pool. Vanessa's obsession with this house had become almost pathological, the kind of social media obsession that blinds people to reality. She had no idea I had purchased it. She had no idea that years of quiet, calculated effort had positioned me to beat her at her own game. "Remember when I started picking up extra shifts 4 years ago?" I asked. Vanessa publicly mocked me, saying nursing was a fallback career. Every extra shift, every bonus went into investments. Every time she posted about designer handbags, I met with financial advisors in secret. I lived frugally, saved meticulously, and learned everything she assumed I didn't know. Noah shook his head, nearly spilling his coffee. "That's brilliant. But you've been carrying this for years. Weren't there times you thought it wouldn't work?" "Every day," I admitted. There were nights I doubted myself, nights I cried, nights I wondered if I'd ever get the chance to show her. But I kept going. Because revenge isn't just about humiliation, it's about reclaiming your dignity. Messages buzzed across my phone constantly, Leo updating me about Vanessa's posts, Vanessa herself bragging about the house, oblivious to the fact it no longer belonged to her. Every buzz was a reminder, patience was paying off. Then reality intruded, the hospital pager blared, multiple car pile-up, all hands on deck. My carefully constructed psychological world collapsed into controlled chaos. Adrenaline surged, snapping me out of my internal plotting. Trauma patients, surgical assists, and paperwork consumed 12 straight hours. Exhaustion weighed heavily on me, but the plan remained intact, simmering in the background like coals waiting to ignite. Later that night, back in my small apartment, I collapsed on the couch across from Noah. He handed me a glass of wine and an envelope. Inside was a letter from a development company offering to buy the Hamptons property I had just secured, for significantly more than I had paid. My eyes widened. The number was enough to double my investment instantly. "You're not considering it, are you?" Noah asked, suspicion lacing his voice. "No way," I said, setting the letter down carefully. "This isn't about money. This is about something much bigger. My entire life, Vanessa has made me feel invisible, belittled, dismissed. Tonight, she thinks she's winning, but she has no idea the game has already changed. The weight of the injustice, the planning, and the sacrifices made this moment taste like sweet, forbidden chocolate." I could almost hear Vanessa's voice in my head, "Some people just aren't meant for bigger things." She had no idea. She had no idea that I had been quietly building, while she flaunted, while everyone laughed and assumed I was struggling. I laughed softly to myself, exhaustion and exhilaration mixing. The Hamptons house wasn't just a house, it was a symbol, the ultimate revenge. I stared at the ceiling that night, my mind racing with possibilities. The plan was set, but timing would be everything. Vanessa thought she was untouchable. She had no idea the storm was coming. The night after the reunion, I sat cross-legged on my tiny apartment floor, a pile of notes, spreadsheets, and property listings scattered around me. The room was dimly lit, the hum of the city outside like a steady heartbeat. My mind replayed Vanessa's smug face, her condescending smile, the way she assumed my life was simple and unambitious. Each memory stoked the fire inside me. I leaned back against the couch and exhaled slowly, tasting the thrill of what was about to unfold. This wasn't impulsive, it was precise. Every step, every move, had been considered. And yet, the stakes were high. Vanessa's hubris was dangerous. One slip, one early revelation, and the entire plan could collapse. I began with the obvious, timing. Vanessa was set to announce her Hamptons house purchase at the family dinner. That was my moment. She would expect applause, envy, admiration. But instead, she would be met with shock and humiliation. Every text, every social media post, every insider tip she thought she had, I had already used to my advantage. I pulled out my phone and opened the real estate documents one more time. Closing papers, signed agreements, transfer of deeds. Each detail was airtight. No agent could reveal the sale, no one could backtrack without exposing the truth. The power of anonymity was intoxicating. I smiled, knowing she had no idea that her dream was now a testament to my patience and cunning. But revenge is never just about a single act, it's psychological. I had to manipulate the narrative, ensure that Vanessa's public persona crumbled in the presence of everyone she wanted to impress. That meant studying her patterns, her social media habits, her interactions with family, her need for validation. Vanessa thrived on attention, she craved it like oxygen. The more I controlled the flow of information, the tighter the trap became. Over the next few days, I executed small, deliberate maneuvers to heighten tension. I maintained my quiet persona, smiling, nodding, remaining the practical, struggling sister. Every interaction with relatives reinforced their assumptions. Every time Vanessa bragged about her upcoming Hamptons vacation, I nodded along, feigning admiration, all the while knowing the truth. I texted Leo, make sure Vanessa posts the walkthrough photos on Instagram. Timing is crucial. He responded with a laughing emoji, she's falling right into your trap. Even my own heart raced at the audacity of it all. The thought of revealing the truth in front of the entire family both thrilled and terrified me. I had rehearsed the confrontation in my mind dozens of times, every possible reaction from Vanessa, every question from my parents, every sympathetic glance from extended relatives. Meanwhile, I continued my routine at the hospital, balancing the demands of trauma nursing with the psychological weight of my plan. The long hours, the sleepless nights, they were all part of the strategy. Living frugally, working relentlessly, investing strategically, it all converged into this one moment of impending victory. I found a strange rhythm in it, a satisfaction in the discipline that Vanessa had always lacked. Then came the emails. The development company had confirmed their interest in the property I had purchased. Their offer was substantial, more than double my initial investment. I had a choice, sell for instant profit, or wait for the perfect psychological impact. I chose the latter. Money was secondary, satisfaction was paramount. I spent hours drafting the final sequence of events for the dinner. The placement of drinks, the order of introductions, subtle glances, casual remarks, all calculated to maximize the impact of the reveal. Vanessa's pride, her carefully constructed image of superiority, would be dismantled piece by piece, without my ever raising my voice. Noah became my confidant and strategist. Over coffee breaks and late-night calls, we reviewed every detail. "She's going to be destroyed," he said one night, shaking his head. "This is next level. You've thought of everything." "I have to," I replied. "She's built her entire identity on being untouchable. If I misstep, it could all backfire." Even Leo got involved, feeding me updates from Vanessa's social media, every post, every story, every subtle brag. Each update was ammunition, each brag a confirmation that she was walking blind into my trap. The night before the family dinner, I barely slept. Lying in bed, I felt the familiar tension coil in my stomach, excitement mingled with anxiety. I visualized the moment of reveal, Vanessa's expression, the gasps of relatives, the quiet shock turning into disbelief. I imagined the subtle shift in family dynamics, the recognition that the quiet, practical sister had just outmaneuvered the golden child. I also visualized Vanessa's excuses, her attempts to rationalize, to blame luck or circumstance. But nothing could undo the truth. Every document, every signed paper, every carefully orchestrated step, untouchable. As dawn broke, I dressed in my simple blue dress, the same one I had worn to the reunion. It had become my armor, a reminder of the persona I had maintained while building my empire in the shadows. I tucked the envelope containing the closing papers safely into my purse, ready for the perfect moment. Before stepping out, I paused in front of the mirror. My reflection showed a composed, calm woman, no hints of the storm brewing within. That would be key. Vanessa thrived on chaos, on drama. I would give her none. Only the cold, calculated reveal, the undeniable proof that she had been outplayed. I took a deep breath, feeling the thrill and the fear, and whispered to myself, this is it. Everything changes tonight. As I walked to Vanessa's McMansion, the early morning sun casting long shadows across the driveway, I knew the moment had arrived. Every risk, every sleepless night, every sacrifice had led to this. Vanessa had no idea what was coming, and when she realized, it would be too late. The car rolled to a stop in front of Vanessa's McMansion, gleaming under the late morning sun. I gripped the strap of my purse, feeling the envelope with the closing papers pressed against my side like a loaded weapon. The air was crisp, charged with anticipation. Leo fell into step beside me. Ready, he whispered. More than she is, I murmured. My stomach was a mix of nerves and exhilaration. Every beat felt like a countdown. We stepped inside. The familiar scent of polished wood and expensive candles hit me, a stark contrast to the chaos I was about to unleash. The house was immaculate, everything perfectly curated, Vanessa's pride on full display. Family photos lined the walls, each smile and award a carefully constructed testament to her superiority. I forced a polite smile at Ethan, who greeted me warmly, oblivious to the storm about to break. She's in the kitchen, Leo whispered. Been cooking all day. I nodded, my eyes flicking toward the island. Takeout containers, now carefully disguised on platters, a testament to Vanessa's need to appear perfect. I let myself smile. Subtle, controlled. Like a predator savoring the moment. Vanessa noticed me, her eyes lighting up with false warmth. Maya. You came. I accepted the glass of wine Ethan offered, nodding politely. I couldn't miss the amazing news. Can't wait to hear it. Her smile tightened, hiding the first flickers of doubt I'd planted weeks ago. Oh, you're going to love it, she said, straightening a platter of what looked like carefully prepared appetizers. I knew better. Dad arrived, followed by Noah, who I'd invited for moral support and subtle reassurance. Vanessa's eyebrows arched. Still hanging out with hospital people? She asked, the condescension dripping. I countered softly, nodding toward the hidden takeout containers. Still pretending you cook. Her eyes narrowed, but before she could respond, Ethan called everyone to the dining room. It was time. Vanessa took her position at the head of the table, brimming with confidence. I have amazing news to share. As you know, Ethan and I have been looking at the most gorgeous property in the Hamptons. Noah squeezed my knee under the table, and I felt my pulse quicken. I let her speak, letting anticipation build, letting her bask in the imagined admiration. And we are absolutely thrilled to announce. Ethan interrupted, checking his phone with a frown. Honey, I just got an email from our agent. Vanessa waved him off. Not now, sweetie. As I was saying, the house sold, to someone else. I spoke calmly, deliberately, letting the words land like a hammer. The room froze. Glasses paused mid-air, forks hovered over plates. Vanessa's face drained of color. That's impossible. Check again, she demanded, disbelief edging her voice. It sold 2 days ago, I said evenly. The agent says the new owner wishes to remain anonymous for now. The first cracks appeared in her carefully maintained facade. Her mouth opened, closed, her hands trembling slightly. The power in the room shifted, imperceptibly at first, then undeniable. This isn't possible, she whispered, fumbling for excuses. I stood, smoothing my dress, calm, composed. Why aren't you more upset about this? Because, you're supposed to be happy for me. You're supposed to be jealous, she snapped. Leo choked on his drink. Ethan tried to intervene, softly suggesting a pause. No, she shouted. This was supposed to be perfect. I was going to show everyone. Show everyone what? I asked. How successful I am. How much better. My voice was measured, but every word landed with precision. Her glare said everything. Mom exchanged worried glances with Dad. Vanessa's image, carefully constructed over decades, was crumbling. Better than who? Mom asked cautiously. I slid the envelope across the table, opening it to reveal the closing papers, the deed in my name. Remember when you told everyone I was probably bankrupt? I asked. These are the papers. The Hamptons house. Mine. Vanessa's eyes widened, the wineglass trembling in her hands. This is a joke. I smiled faintly. Closing papers arrived yesterday. Want to see them? The room erupted in chaos. Ethan stared in disbelief, Dad demanded explanations, Mom buried her face in her hands. But all I could see was Vanessa's face, the exact moment she realized the struggling little sister had outmaneuvered her at her own game. How did you manage this? She stammered. Maybe we should talk about real achievements, I said, voice steady. This isn't possible, she muttered, flipping through the papers with shaking hands. You can't afford this. You're a nurse, she accused. A nurse who knows how to invest, I replied calmly. You taught me that. Every dinner, every brag about property values, every market tip, it all came together. Ethan leaned over Vanessa's shoulder. These are legitimate. She really bought it. Dad looked at me with a mix of astonishment and pride. Maya, how long have you been planning this? I saw an investment opportunity and took it, I said lightly. Isn't that what you always praised Vanessa for? Vanessa's face had gone from red to white. You did this to spite me, she accused. Did I? Or did you just assume nobody else could achieve what you wanted? I countered. Mom's hands flew to her mouth, a mix of shock and awe. Leo couldn't hide a triumphant grin. Vanessa, realizing the depth of the humiliation, tried to salvage her dignity, but the moment was gone. Every carefully constructed lie, every inflated boast, collapsed under the weight of truth. The family was silent, absorbing the scale of her downfall. Some whispered to each other. Some stared openly. I felt no gloating, only satisfaction. Justice, measured, deliberate, complete. Later, after the initial chaos settled, Noah and I walked outside. The air was cool, the sun dipping low, casting long shadows over the garden. I felt the weight lift from my shoulders, a tension I hadn't realized I'd been carrying for years. You did it, Noah said softly. I did, I replied, watching the house from a distance. Not hers, not anymore. Mine. And in that moment, I realized something crucial. Revenge isn't just about punishment. It's about reclaiming your power, asserting your worth, and proving, first to yourself, then to everyone else, that you are not to be underestimated. Vanessa's screams faded behind me as I walked away, head held high, heart racing, victorious. She had built a castle of illusions. I had simply taken the keys. By the end of the evening, the truth was undeniable. Vanessa's family slowly understood her arrogance had blinded her. I had played the quiet, practical sister, while building an empire in plain sight. The Hamptons house was more than a property, it was proof that intelligence, patience, and resilience could triumph over arrogance and entitlement. And me? I finally felt seen. Not as the struggling nurse, not as the overlooked sibling, but as Maya Patel, strategic, capable, unstoppable. Revenge had been served, not cold, but with precise timing, and with a satisfaction that was almost cathartic. If you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or dismissed, remember, patience, strategy, and persistence can turn the tables. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more real-life revenge stories where the quiet ones finally take control. And remember, sometimes, the smartest move is waiting for the perfect moment.